This is Lips of Steel, Unscripted, Unfiltered, and Unstoppable. And my name is Nicole Redumas, and I'll be your host. And today we are going to talk about contractors and hiring contractors, working with contractors, and then ultimately what to do if things don't go so well. And today I have my guest, very good friend, Kirin.
Thank you.
And he is a contractor and has done a lot of things in the world of building, even been on a TV show with going around the world and making improvements in some more unindustrialized areas of the world. So you've got a lot of experience, and also, you know, I know this is about women, but hey, girls, come on. Don't hire him just because he's beautiful.
No, that's actually a really good point. You don't want to hire a contractor just because he looks good or you know, jive with his personality.
Yeah. Personalities does not complete a project. I've learned that the hard way, and that's one of the reasons why this topic is super important for me to address in this podcast. And, you know, my podcast is really focused at women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And one of the unfortunate facts in that age range is a lot of divorces.
Right.
And as in my case, I'm a widow. I've been a widow for 13 years. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot more of that too. A lot more women who are losing husbands at an early age. And you're going to end up having to do home improvements because things break down, or you need to make changes in your house, or whatever it is. And it's just a fact of life. You're going to need to hire a contractor at some point.
Yeah, even if it's just a general thing or handyman stuff,
Yeah,
you know.
Plumber, it could be a plumbing contractor, whatever it is. So what I want to do is kind of start off by kind of a high-level overview of the California State Contractors Board and some of the things that they have in place that if you follow some of their guidelines, it can help protect you. And it's just knowledge is power.
Right. Well, the CSLB is set up to, I mean, if you go on their website, it says protecting consumers for years. They're not really there for the contractor. They're specifically there to protect homeowners, or at least that's what the image is and stuff. But it doesn't necessarily always work that way. I would say that the contracting board can be of use to you if you get yourself into some hot water and you're between the number of like $10,000 to $50,000.
Okay.
After $50,000, they quickly become not your friend. So
Right.
That's a whole other story.
Well, one of the things that for me, I tell people this all the time, and, you know, in this last situation, I didn't follow it, but they actually state a licensed California contractor is only allowed to collect either a 10% of the total job value, or is it $1,000?
So it's $1,000 or 10%, whichever one is less.
Which is less, not more, less.
Correct, yeah.
So if you have $1 million project, it's still $1,000.
Correct, yeah.
And, you know, what my understanding is, the reason for that is you want to have a contractor that's solvent, that has the financial capability of supporting their business with or without your job.
I mean, that's a good scenario, yes. I mean, technically by contracting state rules, you're supposed to have the full amount of your project. So say you have a $200,000 project, that contractor specifically is supposed to have an account that has $200,000 that is able to cover the whole project if he had to.
And I think this is one of the, for me, why this is the first
But
thing
most don't.
Right. Well, that's why I wanted to talk about this first, is because a lot of contractors are working job to job and they're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Sure.
So they get to the end of a job, and at the end of a job, most of their money has been front loaded. The consumer, the client has paid for most of everything up to that point. Maybe there's a holdback of 10 or 20%.
Right.
So that's just such a small amount. So now, in order to support their, if they have employees or whatever their overhead is, they have to catch that next job to have revenue to finish that. So,
yeah, I actually have a name for that. I call that doing construction on margin.
On margin. Okay.
That's what I call that.
Okay.
But,
and that's not a great place for a consumer or a client to be.
No. So the thing is this, though, I want to be specific about that. We're talking about bad contractors, because there are good contractors out there that, do not mishmash things. If you ever find yourself in court, judges so often will say that, it's really hard to kind of figure out this contractor's, like, what he did and what he didn't, because
Right.
they also mishmash everything into one account. So it's very difficult to know if that load of lumber was really for your house or if it was for somebody else's house. There's just a receipt.
Got
And you
it.
could be sure that that contractor, if he's a bad contractor when he's going to court, he's going to say that load of lumber was for your house. But you don't really know that. Neither does a judge.
Got it. So don't they isn't there construction software? I mean, I know in like the technology world and all that, you've got project management software. Isn't there software that a contractor can utilize that you could bring in your client to, so that you can kind of see what's going on with the project and what materials have been ordered and that go to your job?
So yes, there are all sorts of apps and programs and things that you can sign up for, have them on your phone so you can see it in real time. These days, they even have apps that you log a picture in with the app showing and the receipt and everything else. So there are apps that, especially like these days, we didn't have that 20 even 15 years ago or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
They're kind of out now, and I think that they're getting a little bit more savvy with coming up with programs like that. Yeah. But they're still, like I said, it's easy to manipulate that stuff. So if you're dealing with a slime bag, you're going to have a problem regardless of whatever app that you have.
Yeah.
It's about choosing right. Kind of like a husband. If you're not choosing right from the start, things may go bad down the road. It's the same way with a contractor.
That's true. That's very true. You're in a very, very intimate relationship with your contractor for a period of time. And, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think, all the way through.
Yeah, I think that's one question that you really need to ask yourself when you're hiring a contractor, even as a man, right? If I'm hiring a contractor to do a project for me and it's going to be a big project, like a year plus, we'll say, year and a half, you're in bed with that person for the next year and a half. And if your personalities don't jive, you're kind of stuck. I mean, so it's one of those things where you really want to try to get to know your contractor beforehand. If you can spend time, and there are ways of doing that. Tell him that you want to visit some of his job sites. You want to talk to some of his clients. You want to see how he interacts with the client, say, can you have the client there? So you can just see what their relationship is, if they're joking around or having fun or whatever. So there are different ways of doing things to really try to get to know your contractor before, but it's really important.
And I think you just said the thing, going on an active job site. I think that is something, there's a lot of information you can pull from that, because when you're walking on an active job site, number one, you're going to see their subs or their employees. How do they behave? And you're going to see how they keep the area. I mean, I've seen where they come through and everything looks like a hurricane hit the property and they don't clean up at the end of the day, or they don't keep things kind of neat and organized. And you have this, nails on the floor and, stuff just scattered everywhere.
Sure.
And first of all, that's waste.
Right.
And second of all, it just shows that there really isn't a investment into attention to detail.
Right. So, and bringing up that point, it's good to go around to some of the job sites with the contractor, meet with the owner, so you can kind of have a feel for what's going on, especially active projects, like you said. But then going back, because they're going to inevitably clean the place up. They're going to want to make it look good. They've already prepped the homeowner that you're going to be meeting with. So they're not going to bring you to a job that they're having a problem at. They're going to bring you to a job that the owner is happy. Generally, that time is, I find the sweet spot is like right after framing, right? So there's a lot of money on the job. The concrete's been done. Maybe there's, if it's a slab, some electric and plumbing and things are in place. But after framing, because homeowners you don't see a lot when you're doing construction. Hey, they came, they put the foundation down, but when they see the actual structure go up in framing, that is the best time to bring somebody around to a house if you're trying to impress them, because the owner is like ecstatic. They're like, wow.
Well, they've seen progress.
Right. And I've got a house. Well, that's all the problems tend to happen, later on after framing. Yeah. When you're getting into all your rough electric, plumbing and this and that, the house is up. You may not even know that you can walk on a job site and not know what's happened. And a plumber could have been there that day, HVAC, electrician. They've done a whole bunch of work, but just because you still see the structure with some wire and stuff, you're like, what'd you guys do today? So that's why those apps could be good, because you can log everything and add pictures to it so a homeowner can kind of see the difference.
I think another, we're kind of jumping around here a little bit because I want to get back into the CSLB and some of the definitions of contractors too. But one of the questions you can ask a homeowner that has a finished project is, let me see what your punch list look like.
Right.
Because the punch list, if you don't already know what that is, a punch list is really project they say is done. We'll put that in quotes, done.
Right.
You walk around the house and you see, oh, there's paint on the wall, that an overpaint. There's a switch that's not working properly. There's a crack in a switch plate. There's, there could be a number of things. And that punch list gives you an idea of where their detail is. Like if the punch list is little tiny things, no big deal, right? But if you got some big things on there, the flooring is popping up already, or a cabinet is, side of the cabinet got chipped, or the granite got cracked when they installed it. I mean, those are the kind of things those are big things. Those are things that cost money.
Yeah, we could talk for an hour on every one of these topics that you're hitting, but I'll cut to the chase to tell you what I eventually did, because it's not always, like I said, if you're dealing with a good contractor, you're still going to have a punch list, right?
Right,
And then sometimes dealing with a bad contractor where, like you said, you have big items that are on there like, hey, I thought we were getting a pool and I've already paid you for it, it's not here, so it's
a big deal.
Exaggeration. But what I did eventually, because I look at it like golf. Until you've putted the last hole on the 18th hole, you're not finished as a contractor, right? So I got to a point, because there is that rift between homeowners, and it usually goes bad sometimes during that punch list. Like, you've built a whole house, you have $2 million behind you, you've paid it, and now you're down to a measly little punch list that you're fighting over, and it's not always the contractor. Sometimes the homeowners, they're very picky.
They're tired. They're at the end of the project. They're tired, and they're looking for a level of perfection that may or may not be able to be achieved.
Well, and what it is this. I can tell you, and I've just with my own experiences, I brought painters back. Say, because you brought up the painting as an example, I brought painters back 5 times. Technically, in all the contracts, in my contract state, we're going to do a punch list. The sub will come back one time. We'll do a full walkthrough. We'll put tape everywhere and so on and so forth. And then we'll do a walkthrough after. And I've done that. And we finished the project, and I'll get a call, 5 days later. Oh, I was going to the bathroom and I closed the door and I noticed a run on the thing. Okay, all right. So I'll send somebody over and they go over and they fix it. Then it's like, oh, then I noticed this. Like, it wasn't, and the list just keeps going.
Right.
So let me get to the point.
You have to have a stopping point.
Right. So what I did was this. I had a guy that worked for me who was a handyman, basically, and he does like the knick-knack stuff, okay? Right. And he was like, good at all those sort of trades. I'm not talking about like going in and finishing off electric, but say there's an electric plate that's not, it's not level. He'll go in and readjust it and level it and stuff like that. So what I did is I always had on a project, say that's $1 million, I would have depending anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 allowance. I would introduce this person to the homeowners. I want to make sure that they were comfortable with him. We would work the punch list down to where we got it under $10,000 or under $5,000. That's an agreed upon. Like, yeah, we figure we have about $500 worth of touch-ups and paint, $500, this, that. Mm-hmm. And then from that point on, I was released as a contractor. So this is a good tip for homeowners, and it's a really good tip for contractors, because who wants to, like, you have this great, say you have a good contractor, you have this great, relationship throughout the whole project, and then all of a sudden everything goes south because of $200 or $300 worth of stuff, because he gets frustrated. The subs are like, dude, I've been back that place 5 times. Like, I'm not going back anymore. It's going to
be more expensive too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I did. And we would get it underneath that. I would hand it over. That has been a saving tool of mine, and I think I've saved a lot of contractors explaining that to him. And then the best part about it, and how I used to pitch it to a homeowner, things are going to happen down the road. You're going to want to switch out, filters and HVAC and stuff like that. A lot of people tend to call the contractor. I'm like, we're builders. I don't have time to go over there and change your filter out. But it's a really good leeway to somebody who now you can call all the time if you have a lock or something else you want to do.
Yeah, and a handyman is actually a prized thing. I mean, if you look on any of the social media out there, people are, on all the community pages looking for a handyman. No, looking for a good handyman.
Right.
Looking for one that actually knows what they're doing.
Correct, yeah.
It's so difficult to find somebody that is actually skilled in general, just general stuff around the house, but isn't going to charge an arm and a leg for, like a contractor's level pricing,
Right.
but for just, general little things that you need handled
Sure.
around the house. So I think that's a really great value add.
Yeah.
To discuss with the contractor. So I'm gonna backtrack us a little bit because part of what I want to do is I want to really educate people, and I feel like I've been through one hell of an education with my project, my never-ending story. So back to the California State Contractors Board, they license contractors. So there's a test that they take, and they're licensed. It's somewhat regulated.
Yeah.
And there's laws, and there's
You have two tests. You have a law test, and then you have a test that's technical on construction.
right.
So
So
there's two of them. You
they
have
need to
pass
know
both.
building codes. They need to know, any of the local laws and any contractors.
Correct.
They need to know contract law as well,
Right.
which is a whole different thing. All right. So there are several different types of contractors, and I'm just going to kind of go through them, and you can kind of embellish on it. There's the type of license. There's A, which is general engineering.
Correct.
And my understanding is that is things like excavating and I don't know. elaborate
No.
on that.
So the A license is typically for doing like civil jobs, like not necessarily something a B licensed contractor would do. B guys are doing home remodels. They're doing residential, industrial. They're doing TIs for build outs. A license
Wait, what is a TI?
TI is like it's like a build out for if you're in a commercial building. So
Okay. When you if you rent a commercial building,
right,
and
and say you want to put in
you
a
want
store.
to make it look, customize it.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
like say you're building a Dior store or something like that, it'd be a TI build.
Yeah, Dior
So
store, that's what I want.
So the A license is like, say you're going to build a dam or you're going to do a bridge, like something for the
Okay.
city. That's
So
really
we're not talking about that.
no. And so those are really, really big. But what's important too is the A license generally can do whatever a B license does. So A supersedes a B. It doesn't mean that you're going to find a contractor. You rarely find a contractor that's doing remodels or
Right.
TIs and stuff that have an A license. It's not.
Sounds like it's probably a little bit more difficult to get and more
Yeah.
qualifications.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about dealing with the public. So if a bridge caves in, there's some serious liability to that. Yeah.
So we'll set A aside. Okay. There's B and there's B2. So we have B general building, and then B2 residential remodeling. So differentiate those two for me.
So B covers pretty much everything. So you can do a full build from the ground up. On a remodeling, a B2, you can't really do that. So you can do like, go in and put a bathroom in or do a kitchen or something like that. But building from the ground up, you would not be able to do. On a
Okay.
B2.
So the general building is one that is going to do foundation, framing, roofing,
Yes.
all of that. Now, when I was looking through this, it said that I was told that a general building, a B contractor, which is probably your most common
Sure.
out there, must use licensed subcontractors to do the work.
So how that works, and that's a really, really important
Yes.
point.
Finding out how
a lot of
important
people,
that is.
yeah. So a lot of people think that when they hire a general contractor that has a B license, they could do everything.
Yeah.
And you'll find there's a lot of shady contractors that are out there that will go, oh yeah, my guy is going to do the electric and this, and they bring in people that are their employees.
Right.
And you're not going to think twice about it, but just because you have a B license doesn't mean it covers everything. So you can usually do anything that's 2 subs or more. You can usually do a lot of that in-house. But when it comes to, say, your 4 major ones like electrical, plumbing, HVAC, like those bigger ones, those are, you can't do. You have to have like somebody who has like a C36 license, which is, I think, electrical, and C10 for plumbing and stuff.
Right.
So even if it's just something small.
Right. Well, I mean, a plumbing contractor is going to not just deal with water; they're going to deal with gas.
Right.
And gas is a big deal.
Sure.
And if you've just got Joe employee hooking up gas lines, they may not have the knowledge base.
Correct. Yeah.
To foresee issues.
Yeah. No, I've walked on projects. I've walked on projects that have gone bad. And literally, we've had to rip out almost every single thing that was done plumbing wise, electric wise, and everything, because it was just done with, an employee who didn't really, they had some experience, but they didn't know
He's
what
done it
that
for a few years.
Yeah, they didn't know what the codes
what
are. There's like a specific type of pipe that you need and thickness of the wall of the pipe when you're doing, say, a tankless water heater or something like that. So this is like after the fact. So we're looking at the outside, we're looking at the heater, then we're looking at the pipe that he used going into the house. I'm like, this is the wrong pipe throughout the whole house. Everything he did. So every wall had to be opened up. All the piping had to be redone. I mean, it was a nightmare.
That's like one of the worst nightmares, because then who pays? And, that's when you have a contractor, if you have somebody come in and they're like, oh, never mind, I'm not going to do this job. And then you're screwed.
Yeah, no, you're going to be looking into a big fat mirror as to who pays.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Let's avoid that, ladies. Okay. And then the other type of contractor is C, or specialty. So that's like you were just saying, the plumbing, the electrical, the roofing. And those are people like if you need to replace a panel, electrical panel.
Right.
Obviously, licensed contractor.
Correct.
Plumbing issues, same thing. You can just hire them one off. You don't have to hire a general contractor. But so when you're doing a project, actually, I'm going to hold on that for a minute, because a few other things that as you're working through the contractor portion of it is making sure that they have extra insurance, that they have workers' comp and a bond.
Right. So it's not extra. Everybody has to have like $1 million worth of liability. It's if you want extra, like say you want them to have $2 million worth of liability, you could do that. And in my case, some homeowners had larger projects. They want to do that, but that expense is passed on to you.
Right.
So it's not like I just went out, bought the insurance and had it. You pay for it, and they're happy to pay for it because they want to insure it and everything else.
Can you use your homeowner's insurance, or in what capacity could you use your homeowner's insurance to cover when you have a contractor?
So I have seen some homeowners insurances that will do that, but usually for construction insurance, it's a whole different company.
Okay.
But I have seen it where some, it happened to be that they did construction insurance as well. So it's out there. So you definitely reach out to your whoever's listening, reach out to their agent and, find out about that.
Okay. And then the workers' comp and then the bond. How, they can, people say all the time, oh, I have workers' comp and I have a bond. Well, how does that help the homeowner? And how should that be applied to the contract that a homeowner is negotiating with a contractor?
Well, so a contractor has to have a bond. They have to be bonded. So you say, how does that work with a homeowner? So if it goes south and you're having a problem, yes, you could tender the bond, and most likely you'll get it if the contractor is not trying to appease you and fix the problem or whatever. You'll eventually get that bond, and then that enables him. He's no longer allowed to work. So that's one reason why they would not want to lose the bond. Second is to get a new bond. Typically, they'll put a disciplinary bond in place, and that one will cost more. So if you lose the bond, he still needs to pay that bond before he can get another one. And then a lot of the times they'll impose a disciplinary bond, which would be higher. And he may even have to pay for that bond up front. It depends. So scenario.
Kind of a little bit getting into the weeds. I don't want to spend a lot of time there, but explain that. How do they get a bond, and what does that actually mean? I mean, are they paying, if their bond is $15,000, do they deposit $15,000?
No, usually like a bond that's $15,000, you pay $1,500.
So it's kind of like bail bond.
In a sense, yeah. In a sense. So they will, but again, like I told you, they're not paying the $15,000 up front. They're just paying the $1,500, and it's usually about 10%. But if they lose that bond, they're responsible to pay for it, and they will. The bond company will go after.
Technically, the same thing then. I mean, like somebody, if they bail out with a bond, they pay the percentage.
It's the same thing, yeah.
And if they don't show up in court, then they owe the whole amount.
Correct.
So it's a little checks and balances.
Yeah, and they won't be, like I said, they won't be able to get a license after that. Like they'll get suspended if they don't have a bond. Yeah.
So that's some incentive to not screw up as a contractor.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to work if you don't have your bond.
But when you're thinking about it on a line of, say you're in the middle of a dispute with a contractor and you're $200,000 in the hole, does a $15,000 bond really do very much?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Can you request a larger bond on a larger project?
You can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can ask for larger bonds, and again, you'd pay for it. So.
Okay.
But you can.
And then the workers' comp. I mean, these are all things that if you go on the California State Contractors Board website and you search the name of the contractor or the name of their business, all of this information is available there.
Correct.
and it'll show if it's active. It'll show if there's any disciplinary action, if there's been any complaints against them.
Right.
All of this information is there.
So it is all there. You can go look at it, but it's also important to keep looking at it, like throughout your project,
Right.
because they may have a problem with somebody else, and then all of a sudden their license was yanked, and then technically they're not allowed to work on your project. So,
Okay.
and it is your responsibility, and that's what's important for anybody listening. It's your job to, if you're going to hire a contractor, to do your due diligence on making sure he's licensed, making sure he has a bond, making sure that he has workers' comp. It'll even say, because a lot of workers' comp's a big deal. Like a lot of, and when I mean a big deal, it's like you lose your house over it. There's a lot of guys can't afford workers' comp. So at the very bottom, even though he's licensed, it's active and everything else, at the very bottom, it'll say, contractor has, one employee or less, and he doesn't have to have workers' comp. And so there's no workers' comp policy. And some people think when they look, they see everything's active, everything's good, and that sort of stuff, but they miss that one little line down there. And if somebody gets hurt on your job and gets hurt bad, cuts an arm off or something, they could own your house in the end.
So kind of leads to the other part of it as a general building contractor that's bringing in subs.
Yeah.
So that kind of opens up a whole nother can of worms, really, because each one of those licensed subs needs to provide the same thing.
Yes.
And you need to research and make sure. So you don't want your contractor just saying, yeah, sure, I've got subs, no problem. You want to know who those subs are from the get-go.
Yeah. A lot of people, and one of the first things I say to somebody that I'm getting ready to do a project for, I ask them, I say, why are you hiring me? Like, why are you hiring a contractor? Right? A lot of people don't know. And you would be surprised the amount of people, you look at me and they go, I don't know, to build my house.
Right.
You're not hiring a contractor to build your house. In the end, yes, that's what you're going to wind up with. If you're hiring a good contractor, you're going to wind up having everything done in its whole. But you're hiring a contractor because he's the glue in between the subs, right? And that is a really, really important thing to understand, because like you said, well, I can just hire the subs. I can hire an electrical guy, I can hire a plumber to come in, and I can just kind of contract it myself and save 20%.
I did that for my pool, actually.
Okay. So
And it worked out great, but it was a pool.
yeah. So sometimes that can work out good. A lot of times it doesn't. In the contractor, like I'll give you one example. So say you hire a framer, and I hire a sub who's a framer. He frames up the whole house, right? And he does it then, and say I'm not the contractor, you just do it. He frames everything up. He's done everything. You get your subs to go in, put everything into the walls. Drywaller comes, drywalls everything, right? At the end of the day, and say it's a modern home, you start looking at your walls, and they're kind of wavy a little bit, right? And you're like, you start complaining to the drywall. You're like, hey, there's a lot of waves in here. And then he goes, well, we just drywalled over the framing. He goes, if you have problems with the waves, you need to talk to your framer because his framing's off.
Yeah.
And then you go talk to the
I
framer.
did a lot of this.
Well, and then you go talk to the framer, and you're like, I talked to the drywall guy. He says all these waves are because your walls weren't straight. And then the framer turns around and he goes, well, you didn't straight edge it. And you're like, well, what is straight edging? Well, straight edging, you pay us an extra fee to come in after, and it's only $2,500 to straight edge a whole house that's maybe 5,000 square feet. So it's a really small amount for such a large home. But straight edging levels all those out. So when the drywaller comes in, especially on a modern home, everything's nice, flat, clean, and crisp and pristine. Now you've got, so what are you going to do? Rip all the drywall out now and redo it all? So that's the problem. So that's why you're hiring a contractor. You're hiring a contractor to come to you and go, look, this is what this is going to look like. Do you want to straight edge the walls? Right. And there's this.
Well, and he would direct, it seemed like he would direct the subs to, that would be part of their scope.
Well, it would be in the job, and like while you're bidding it, you would go over all that sort of stuff, and yes, have those conversations. But then there's things like electrical, right? Say you come in later and go, hey, I've decided to do a bunch of really nice paneling inside my dining room. The job's been going good. We've already put all the electrical into the walls, and we've already drywalled everything, and nobody took a look at where those electrical outlets are. Now you start laying out your paneling, and you wind up with electrical outlets that are being in areas you don't want them, like right in the middle of where there's a raised paneling. Then who pays for that?
Right.
So I come back to you and go, well, look, this is an afterthought, so now we got to move all this electrical. It's going to cost you an extra $5,000 just in this room to open up the walls, redo it, plaster, and then come back. So that's why you're also hiring a contractor. You're hiring a contractor to go over all these things. And one of the most important points on a contract that I tell people, my contracts have everything that is going to be included in your job.
Right.
But the most important part of a contract like that is having everything in there that it doesn't. So my contracts have everything from A to Z that you could possibly think of in construction, like everything.
Okay.
And I go through every line with a person. And I'm like, do you want like a vacuum system installed in your house? No, I don't need that. We have a maid who's going to vacuum. Yeah. Okay, so I have that line item, and it has a big old zero beside it because we discussed it, and I leave it in the contract. Because later some people say, I told you I wanted, a vacuum system and now I don't have it. And I go, you never told me that. And It's like, because a lot of things are talked about. I mean, you're talking about everything over a span of weeks.
And there's a lot of conversations that take place, and those conversations, if it's not in the paperwork.
Right.
You can't have an expectation that it is going to be a part of your end result.
Yeah, your contract is your Bible. Yes. To going back and really having a discussion. That's why that contract, when it's done and finished, it should be detailed like you have no idea. My contracts are like this. I've gone bidding against other people that come in with one sheet. It says framing, $49,000. Plumbing is $29,000. And it just goes on. That's it. One little sheet. Yeah. My contract is like that. I mean, it's a friggin' book.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. And then, I talked to someone recently who said that when they were doing a major remodel, they gutted to the walls. They hired their contractor, and they did a pre-project meeting, and the contractor brought all the subs in, and everyone sat together in the house and, spent a great deal of time hashing through every aspect of it to get clear. So even the subs knew who each other were and could say, oh, wait, when you're going to do this, this is going to affect my part. So consider this. And I thought that was kind of a, probably something that a lot of people, I've never done that before.
So good contractors will bring the subs out, but there's a two-part thing to that. Good contractors and bad contractors will bring subs out.
Okay.
So say I have JW Air is a really, really good HVAC company, but they're very, very expensive. They're like, 3 or 4 times more expensive than some of the other subs I can get to do the exact same job. But those subs work well with me as a contractor, but they don't even want to talk to the homeowner. Like they just don't even, they don't have very good homeowner skills. So again, that's why you're
no bedside manner.
And no bedside manner. So if you're a bad contractor, you would bring JW Air out, introduce them to the owner, and say this is who we're hoping to use for your project, blah blah blah. And later he comes back and his bid's like $100,000 more than everybody else. So homeowner doesn't want to hire him, so on and so forth, right? So the biggest part of that and that whole thing of what you're talking about, because I would bring subs out to meet with homeowners, the ones that I felt should, and have a conversation, is that you have that in your contract, that when you're contracting, that's the company that you're using. So you already know JW Air is $100,000 and you've agreed to it. He's in there. JW Air is going to perform the work. These are his licenses, his bonds, his lien releases, all this sort of stuff. And it's in there. Not like all of a sudden JW Air goes away and I'm bringing in some guy who looks like I picked up off the street to come in and do your
the bait and switch.
The bait and switch, exactly.
Okay.
So have it in your contract. Your contract's your Bible.
Right. So, gosh, there's so much. I feel like this is almost like a natural stopping point here. We've covered all the back end stuff. Now we need to develop the project.
Right.
So, I mean, if I were to say a part A, a part B, we're probably moving into part B right now.
Okay.
All right. All right.
I'm ready.
So developing the project. And this is something that I'm kind of, because I'm going through a very, very major remodel myself, thanks to a water pipe break, and taking advantage of the fact that my walls are all open. It's like, this is a good time if I want to make a couple of other improvements. Why not do it now, right? Sounded like a good idea.
Yeah. Usually that's opening up a can of worms. But.
Can of worms. I mean, we're talking about asps. You know what the asp is? That's like from Indiana Jones, the most poisonous snake that exists on the planet. Yeah. So I have opened up this den of asps, and I'm over 2 years in, and it's a nightmare. So I'm learning. So I want to pass on my learning to other people so that you guys don't make the same mistake I did. So regardless of how you come into wanting to do a project, do your research. if it's a remodel, if it's like right now, very sadly, we have a lot of people who lost their homes. They're going to be building brand new homes.
Right.
Or they lost partial home, or they've had major smoke damage, or even major water damage inside their homes because of these fires in the Palisades,
Right.
Altadena, and all of that. So
Yeah, we lost our house back in
That's right.
2018.
That's
so.
right. So we know.
So I've lived what you're talking about.
Right, and it's so unfortunately we've got a lot of people that we know and that you and I have experienced as well. The Woolsey fire was our fire, and so they're going to be going down this pathway.
Yeah.
And some of the things that come up with a construction project, unfortunately, they don't come up until almost the very end. I'm actually at the very end of my permit process with building and safety.
Okay.
And the outside engineers, and it's brought up some stuff regarding the structure of my house and how my house was originally built. And it's taken me almost 6 months to deal with the comments that came out of their outside consultant and retrofitting and supporting the house.
Right.
Because, once you took all the other structures off and you're going to making any changes to the structure, it's an older building. It's 1977.
Right.
It's made of concrete. It's not your typical build house. So anyways, doing your research at the beginning, first and foremost, have a general idea of what your dream results are. That would be my advice. What do you think about that?
So, and it's funny because I've just been doing this with my girlfriend, Jen, and we bought a house together, and she just wants to get going on it. She's like,
Is it here or is that the one in Italy?
Well, that's the one in Italy. So she wants to get going on it right away. She just wants to start handling.
That is our way. We women, we want to get things done.
Well, even, I've had men clients, same way. They just want to get started. They don't care. They just want to. So the thing is this, having, like you said, there's research, which I think what you're meaning is like having a good plan. You really want to know what you're going to do from A to Z on that house. And the only way to do that is to really have it like in drawings. So what I did is we went to our house. I literally made interior drawings. All that's going to be put into CAD. And, the whole time Jen's like, well, why do we have to do that? Like, why are we even bothering with these drawings? I'm like, babe, listen.
Sorry, I just want to stop real quick because definitions, I want to make sure we're clear. CAD is a computer.
Yeah, so it's a computer-generated drawing of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a program that you can use to drop in all of your dimensions, all of your.
Correct.
Like, what the room's sizes look like, and it puts it into a 2D format, and that can be converted actually into a 4D, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so in fact, I took all the drawings when I went there. I brought them back, and I'm not savvy with CAD programs set up by my sister. She's an interior designer and she also designs homes. I mean, she's fabulous. So I'm just giving all those drawings to her. She's going to do it all. But from there, we can literally plan every single part of it, right? And that's what people tend to not do. They just want to get started on. There's so much that goes into a house. Right. Like your appliances, you should be picking those at the very start of the job. If you're going to be planning a kitchen and you don't know what you're putting in there, every little part has to be in those drawings. I'm trying to explain that to Jen. I'm like, listen, we have to have everything in here. And it seems excessive, but it's going to save you a lot of time and money down the road. I guarantee it.
When I did that with mine, I did my architectural plans. I love my architect. She is absolutely amazing. Nice. She has absolutely walked beside me through this whole process, and I don't think I would be surviving without her. But your plans should be to the extent that you can close your eyes and picture yourself walking through that space.
Right, but a lot of people can't do that.
And if you can't, there is a program that can go with these designs that you put those little goggles on, and you can actually do that. It's actually pretty cool. And if you have trouble visualizing what you're putting on paper, that's another good way. But so when I say about doing the research is once you have that general plan, that's great. And that's your dream, right? This is like in a perfect world, I've got this beautiful home. I'm going to remodel. I'm going to make the kitchen bigger. I'm going to add this. I'm going to move these walls. I'm going to do all that.
Right.
Okay. But there is a little thing called the planning department and permits and building and safety and zoning and all that stuff.
Right.
So the thing that I thought, if I had done this a little bit more in detail, I did do this, but not to the detail I I didn't realize how much was going to be affected. I went to planning and spoke to them. I got their big old booklet at City of Agoura Hills. So I got the big old booklet on, all the steps you go through and all the things you have to consider. And if this exists or that exists, then you have to go into what's called a CUP, a conditional use permit.
Right.
Which is, it's kind of like dragging your body through a knothole.
Right.
In a fence. Okay. That's pretty much what it feels like. And then you step on shards of glass and then you walk through an incinerator. And that's kind of what it feels like. I'm kind of.
Are you dealing with Agoura?
Agoura Hills.
Yeah. So Agoura is I've dealt with them
They're
a lot.
special.
They're
special.
They're very, very special. Yes.
So I'm not going to say anymore because, I want to be able to plead the fifth at some point in my life.
Right, exactly.
But one of the things that I learned is that it's not just your planning department, which is the ones that talk about the permits. You want to be talking to Public Works, Building and Safety. Find out if there are any other architectural review boards, or of course, if there's a homeowners association. You want to get a meeting with all of those people and present your project and is that is that a realistic thing to do? Because I probably could have avoided a whole year of pitfalls. And if I had the information that was given to me at the end of this process,
right,
at the beginning of the process, and they had the information, I just didn't know to ask.
Right. So, because we're a little bit all on the map on that, I'm going to kind of lay it out for you in the best way I can. When it comes to the city permits, planning department, Public Works, all that sort of stuff, you really need to have somebody who knows what they're doing. So you have to look at the project that you're doing at hand. If we're talking about a $10,000 project, you probably don't want to involve any of those people. If you're talking about a bill that's let's go $150,000 and above. Okay. Then you need to have professionals that are going in there and having those conversations. You need, permits, plans, so on and so forth.
Right.
I was a very big fan, of at the start, when you first start doing construction, you're usually working for somebody else. Then you get out, you kind of do things on your own. Then you get into trouble maybe with somebody. You're like, oh my God, I don't have a license and this person's coming after me. So, you kind of learn. And meanwhile, that person was also looking to get a good deal. So they hired you thinking that they could avoid all this stuff. Anyways, you eventually grow up and you go and say, I'm going to go get licensed. I'm going to get insured. I'm going to get bonded. I want to do everything right. I'm going to pull permits for everything. And that's what I got to that level where I got everything that I needed. And then I'm like, every single little thing, I'm like, I'm going to go pull a permit. Well, then I saw what it started. And that's why I'm not a huge fan of the city. I'm not a huge fan of Public Works and all this sort of stuff. Because you see somebody who's looking to do, say, a little remodel of a bathroom, and it's going to bump out into their property, and it's only going to eat up like an extra 2 feet or something like that. And the setback is in the back of the house, and the setback's 100 yards away. So for sure it's not impeding on any kind of setback. I'm kind of like, you can go through the city with this if you want, and by the time we're done, this bathroom's going to cost you $50,000. Or we could just kind of do this ourselves, pull a permit for exchanging a window in case one of your sour neighbors hear all the construction. They call the city and they go, oh, they already have a permit on it, and you post that permit outside. I'll tell you right now, I'm not against doing that because of what I've seen the city do to homeowners. Like they're trying to do
they bankrupted people in this community.
Yeah.
We've had people that have literally been either bankrupted or have had to walk away and sell their property because the city put them through so much in the permit process and required I'm already $120,000 in on all the consultants and all the other people that I needed to develop this project.
Yeah.
$120,000, and I haven't even
it's not surprising.
hammered a nail.
I've seen people go into cities crying. Like I've seen literally in tears at the counter, trying to beg to get their thing finalized. And it's pretty disturbing.
I've actually called the city manager. I've called meetings with the city manager, and I'm like, I want everybody. I want Fish and Game. I want the water department. I don't care. I brought everybody in because I was so tired of everyone doing this, pointing fingers at, no, you got to go talk to this person. Well, no, once you got to go talk to, it's like, let's get everybody in the room. So I did that at one point, but I didn't do it with all the other people that probably would have helped, especially from the engineering
Well, it's
side.
important to say too, if you're doing just like a remodel thing that's not going to affect like the size or livable space and stuff like that, where you're going to actually have gains to it, then you might want to question, like, do we really bring this into the city or do we not? That's something that you're going to have a discussion with your structural guys, because that's the other part of it too, is say you do the work and you have a licensed engineer who's on it, you have a licensed contractor that's on it, but you didn't pull permits because it was a $15,000-$20,000 thing or whatever, that was going to cost you $100,000 to go through the city, then at least in the end, if something comes up or whatever, everything was done right. You have your structural engineer drawings and
Don't
all.
cut corners on getting
You do it right.
the right people.
Yeah, do it right. But I'm not opposed. Like I said, I was one of
I'm
those
not either,
contractors.
believe me.
I was one of those contractors. I feel bad for some of the ones that I sent down the road just because I was firm on, look, you have to get a permit for everything. I'm sorry, but that's the way this works. And because I didn't want to do anything that was, but then I saw what they did to these poor people. And I was just like, I felt responsible. Like literally one lady bumped her kitchen out like 4 feet. Okay. And she didn't care. She was an older lady. She was, I think she was in her 70s at the time, and she was going to live in the house until she died. So she didn't care about the because I told her, I said, if we don't do this through the city, the square footage isn't going to count.
And then you don't pay assessments on it either, though.
Yeah, well, so there's some
Then
other.
there's that.
So and she didn't care because she's like, I'm going to die in this house, so it makes no difference to me. So, but she went down. That was one lady I pushed to get the permits, and it was a $25,000 remodel to her kitchen that wound up costing her about $80,000 just with the permits and everything. So I felt bad about that. And to this day, I'm very good friends with her to this day, and we haven't
She's
really.
still alive then. She's still living.
Oh,
in
she's
the
still
house.
alive. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No, she's such a sweet lady. But I felt bad. It's like, because she's in her retirement, like having an extra $60,000 to put into, bureaucratic bullshit is, in my opinion, was a waste of money.
Right. And you and I are definitely not fans of bureaucratic bullshit.
No, we're not. No.
I have a property in Ohio, and I did a full gut remodel on it, and we're getting to the end. We're in painting mode right now. And the contractor, I was very lucky. He's been amazing. Now, I don't know. Is it a difference between California and Ohio? Who knows? But it has been the smoothest process I have ever been through. He is accountable. He provides, incremental bills. He doesn't freak out if, like, oh my God, you need to pay for this right this second. It's
Right.
like, okay, look, we finished the framing. Here's my framer's bill for you. And, I pay it. And the materials, I pay for the materials. I order them and he picks them up. And it's just been the most amazing experience, but we did not get permits. And so, you're a little bit walking on eggshells. You do things a little differently. Like it's in a historical district, so to speak. It's by a college, so a lot of student housing there. And, you have to be a little careful because the last thing you want is to have somebody come in and stop your project.
Right.
If the city gets wind of it and they're like, no, you need to have a permit on this, and they stop you, then you end up with maybe backtracking and having to redo things because they're going to want to inspect it and all of that. So I took the risk, and at this point it has, it's been fine. And he is a licensed contractor and all of his subs are licensed, and the quality of work is exactly as I would want it.
Right.
So
That's good. That was a good story.
I know, it's a good story. I have a good story. My story here is not so good, and because of the concrete walls, that scared me to try to do it without permits, and because I'm adding like 1,500 square feet to the house, so I kind of want credit for that.
Right.
At some point, if I want to sell it. We've
talked a lot about, bad contractors, good contractors and stuff like that. There are a lot of really, really good contractors out there, but the problem is, and I always tell contractors, the last thing you want to do is go to court with this. You want to try to settle it with the homeowner and get it done with. Because you walk into court, you're already the most hated person in court. Say there's
because everyone's had a bad contractor experience.
Or their brother, sister, or friend. Everybody who's sitting on that panel has had somebody who's been screwed over by a contractor, even though that might be a good contractor, So you're already walking into the lion's den having that happen. So, and I do tell contractors I know that are good and they're having a problem, and I'm trying to kind of mediate it for them and stuff. That's the last place you want to be. But there are good contractors out there. You have one right now that seems to be working out for you. So
Well, we haven't started working yet.
Okay.
We have not begun, so it remains to be seen. In hiring a contractor.
Well, I mean the guy in Illinois or the other.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, no, you're right. I do have in Ohio. Yes, he's been great. I don't anticipate. In fact, we're already looking at other projects, so that's a good thing. When you're anticipating new projects, that kind of gives you an idea.
Right, you're probably looking at this guy going, "Would you want to
I've already asked him.
California and
come here, please."
Yeah.
But then going from Ohio to California, then they don't always know
right
all the building codes and stuff like that.
Especially with what we have going on with seismic codes here.
Right, which has been my biggest pitfall in my project, because when you have 8-inch concrete walls all the way around and you're removing walls and you're changing windows,
that's a big problem.
That's not a happy thing. And the reinforcement, I'm literally earthquake retrofitting my house.
Right.
That is what this whole engineering setback has been, which is why when I was saying about doing your research, like really understand what your current construction is,
right,
what your zoning and your overlays and all the other things that might impact any of these dream changes that you want to make in your house. Because I'm really excited about the project. I'm excited about what my house is going to look like in the end.
Right.
I can picture walking through my house and all these wonderful changes I'm making. Is it worth the pain that I've been through? The walking on the shards of glass and the incinerator.
Who did you hire first with your contract? Like with your thing?
What do you mean?
Well, when you were
the first thing was my architect.
First guy you hired was an architect. Okay,
woman. It was a woman.
So let me tell you a secret, okay? And I tell people, and a lot of people do go to an architect first. So what you did is pretty normal, and good for you for doing that. At least you hired somebody who's a professional to go in and start it. Yeah. However, I always tell people, find out who your contractor is going to be first, and hire your contractor. Then you want to hire an architect that works with that contractor. Okay, so and I'll tell you why. Okay,
and I see the value in that. I can absolutely see the value in that.
Because you want to be able to look, like you said, at the project from A to Z and kind of talk about it as best you can. Because also the contractor, and a lot of people don't know this, like I'm borderline a structural engineer. I mean, I have more structural engineers that say to me when we run into a problem or something in the field, and they are trying to do something and secure it. They're like, well, what can I do? And I go, well, you can run a blah, blah, blah beam, this and that. They got to do the calculations. I don't know the calculations.
Right.
So I'll be like, this will solve that problem. So if it calcs out good, and then so the engineer will have me draw just a hand drawing. He'll go in, calculate all, I'll go, yeah, that worked. Go ahead and do the work. And then he sends me the drawing back.
Where were you the last 6 months when I've been dealing with this bullshit?
So
that's what we're doing right now. It's the calcs. It's like that is the ruler of all.
Right. But
how does it calculate?
But what's important about hiring the contractor first, and a lot of people don't understand this, they figure the structural engineer supersedes the contractor. Well, in most cases, like structural engineers, they're there to cover their ass. That's it. So especially here in California, I've noticed an influx in the past 10 years. Structural engineers pretty much go steel now as much as they can. So if they're doing a structure, rather than using like hardy walls and stuff, which are much cheaper than steel, they'll just go right to steel. And they'll over design the structure of the house to a point where the homeowner can't do it. So I step in many times before, and that's why when you hire me as a contractor, then I have my architects and I have my structural.
Wait, did I hear you say that you're going to be hiring?
No, not yet. But when you're hiring us to do your house, it's I control a lot of what the costs are, right? So I have a conversation with the homeowner, and you should also have a conversation with your architect and designers. So often,
it sounds like that's another team meeting that should
take place. So often people hire architect and say, this is what I want to do. And the architect takes it, and the architect knows better. Let me tell you something. The architect knows better. They should be saying to you, how much do you want to spend? A lot of architects don't say anything. They just draw up your dream house.
Right.
Because they're going to collect $100,000 to do drawings, $80,000 or whatever. They do them all up. Then you pass the drawings off to a contractor. Contractor comes back and he goes, this is $1 million project. You're like, wait a minute. Like I only wanted to spend $250,000. And then you're like, well, and I've been there, and I've said, I'm sorry, but this is $1 million project. And they're like, no, this can't be $1 million. They give it to 2 or 3 other contractors. They all come back roughly the same.
Yeah.
And then they go back to their architect going, hey, so that's why you should hire a contractor first. You should have an open discussion about what you want to spend, not go over or whatever, and then have a budget. From that budget, you hire a architect. The architect gets design knowing, hey, don't design something that's over that. And then you hire your structural engineer. I like to be in control of the structural engineer for the reasons of that steel. They'll come in and they'll put $200,000 worth of steel. I'm like, dude, this house doesn't need this, that, blah, blah, blah. We could throw a beam in here. We could do this here. We can throw hardy walls here. And he goes, yeah, we can do it that way too. They in their head, I'm like, that's $30,000. Right. This is $150,000. It's the same thing. And, and a lot of people don't understand that, you know.
I think we've gone through a little bit of that, and he's had to move around his his designs, and and not only that, but looking at like he put a hardy wall or whatever they call, something like that.
Yeah, hardy wall. Yeah.
And I was like, how am I going to get into my shower? Because you put that right at where my entrance to my shower is. Right. I said, structurally and from your calc's perspective, can it move 4 feet? Because it's a 4-foot wall.
And then who pays for that?
Well, it was a design aspect. And I said, so instead of putting it where you did, could it just shift over 4 feet, which is, there's already, you're already going to be framing a wall there anyway. Right. So, oh yeah, sure, we can do that.
Right.
So you kind of, it's really, I mean, an engineer, their thinking is very numbers and analytical, not necessarily on the creative. They're just looking like, oh, it looks good. It looks good in this exact spot, not really looking at what else is around it. So So I have been very, very involved in that part of the process. And then of course, getting my architect and talking about where can we make these changes to get him what he feels it is needed, but still keep
and you could catch a lot of that stuff
of my design.
You could catch a lot of that stuff. Like I said, hire a good contractor, use his architect, his structural engineer, and I can catch a lot of that in the drawings before, like what you're talking about. Yeah. I can see the shower, I can see the intent of the architect, and then I look at the structural guy and I'm like, hey, you put a hardy wall right in the front of where the door's going. Oh, okay, let me change that. Right. And it's just a simple thing that costs you no money. Right.
Yeah. This one, thankfully, because it was before a lot of the big work had been put in, we were able to, make those adjustments. But when I actually started going down this path, I did talk to contractors first, and they brought their engineers and they brought their architects. And the problem was I didn't like their architect. Right. I didn't jive with them. And I felt like in order for my vision to be realized, I needed to be able to work with an architect that got me.
Right.
But I can see the value of what you're saying. I would have probably, had I engaged a contractor at the same time, working as a team, I can see the value in that.
Yeah, structural engineer is less important.
As they say, hindsight is 20/20. My vision has, gotten much better over the last 2 years.
Yes, the structural engineer is less important because you're not going to really see him, and that's mostly the general's going to be dealing with him mostly, and he doesn't really do anything that it's all structural. It's nothing to do with really design. Now he may put things in there that ruin the design. I mean, I've been on projects where the homeowner thought they had this flat ceiling. All of a sudden there was a beam that is wider than the floor joist and it's hanging down, and that's a problem. So you show up and then who pays for that, right? So a homeowner comes in and goes, that beam going to be sticking down in this beautiful flat ceiling? Yeah, that's the way the guy designed it, blah, blah, blah. So you try to catch those things before. Typically what I do in those scenarios, I'll tell you exactly, because it's not my responsibility. I did what was in the drawing. Right. The architect drew his architectural drawings. The structure guy did his. So everything. So it's like who did what wrong in a sense, right? So the architect should say to the structure guy, and I'll see those two getting involved, and they'll kind of fight about it. Typically in that situation, the wrong thing to do is to pass that cost on to homeowners, and I see that happen to them all the time. Typically, what I'll do as a contractor, because I have an architect fighting with a structural guy, I have a homeowner upset about the thing, I'll make sure that everybody knows what's going on. But I generally come in, I try to figure out what the costs are, and I eat it up myself. And I do that.
Again, do you want to be my contractor?
And I do it for two reasons. One is I want to keep a good relationship with the homeowner. I don't want them feeling like, oh, now I've given him another $10,000. Like, you didn't give it to me. You gave it to my guys that had to do the work and everything. You know what I mean? But they still look at it like they gave it to me. So I don't want to create that with the homeowner. And then second, I look at it, if I'm covering the structural guy and I'm covering the architect, they'll get me another job. And, down the road, that always pays off and stuff. So I usually try to fix that stuff in-house.
Okay. Well, we're kind of getting towards the end of our time here.
Yeah, I can sit here for hours.
There are so many other things to talk about. And first, would you come back and do another episode on what to do when the shit hits the fan?
I would love to talk about what...
because...
I've got a lot of really good information about that.
So one of the things we didn't talk about when I introduced you is that you also have a podcast.
Yeah.
And tell me about your podcast.
So our podcast,
What is the name of it?
It's called Sticks and Stone.
And your last name is?
My last name is Stone, yeah.
There you go.
So in short, my podcast is about the relationship between homeowners and contractors specifically. So kind of like when the shit goes bad. So I usually have guests that are on our show. They go through their story, what happened to them, and we break it down.
Can I be a guest on your
Yeah,
show?
absolutely, 100%. I
have a really sad story.
Yeah, I gotta let you finish up with your project so you have like an end result. But but no. So I think it's really, really informative because it really tells you on how to set yourself up for success, learning by other people's mistakes. And it's not just that. Like I also bring on specialty people, architects. We'll interview structural engineers. We'll interview people that build tiny homes with no permits. I mean, we do a lot of different things, but my main focus is really, that relationship between a contractor and a homeowner, whether it was good or it was bad. Whether it was a bad contractor, whether it was a good contractor. I'll have contractors that will come on and tell me their worst case scenario, and we'll break it down. I've had so many people call and go, that was me. I did that to my contractor, and I did this to my contractor. I'm like, you're part of the problem then, So it's, but anyways, that's the skinny versions.
Okay. Well, and, a little bit, this whole episode is really kind of a high level view of a lot of the stuff and just trying to break down some of the most important points if you're going to have to work with a contractor. The contractors board, understanding what kind of a license they hold and what that means. What are they allowed to do?
Right.
Setting up a project properly and making sure you're doing your research, getting all of the players involved at the beginning of the project so that you can hopefully keep from, having the problems down the road. And also that helps to cut costs. Talking about permits and getting the permit. Should you get a permit or not? Do you take that risk? Finding a contractor. One question I didn't ask. Should you hire friends? I keep asking, do you want to be my contractor?
So that's a good question because I see a lot of people doing it. I would have absolutely no problem hiring a friend. Now, mind you, I have like a lot of experience, and you may say, well, why wouldn't you just do it yourself? Because I don't, shoemaker's shoes. I don't want to work on my own house. I'd rather hire somebody, and I have no problem hiring a friend or somebody to do it. A friend is going to treat you a little bit more sincerely and stuff like that, but
theoretically,
but like you said, how good of a friend? I mean, you don't want to lose a friend over it either, right? Yeah. So I think it's something for you to explore with your friend, because your friend may turn around and go, like I've had people that were my friends and I just know how they are and how they operate and stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna recommend 2 or 3 good contractors I know are gonna do your job really good. I'd rather not involve myself personally that way. Like I've seen them handle things differently on other things that I'm like, I probably wouldn't handle it that way, but he's my buddy, but it is what it is. So, yeah. So I think you have to, it's something for you and your friend to explore. Okay. But I'm not against it.
Okay. So in conclusion, because we are going to come back and we're going to talk about when things go south. I really think that's important. And like when you start seeing things slide, how can you either stop the slide or, then deal with the aftermath. So we'll talk about that in another episode. But I
think how to prevent it is
how to prevent it. That's where that's all of this. So that's going to be, what are the 3 most important things that you would say to prevent that would set you up for success in a project, regardless of the size of the project? Right. What are the what are your 3 nuggets that you want people to?
You want me to say that now?
Right now. 3 things.
I mean, I would say, again, we talked about it. I would hire your contractor first. So
Okay.
I'd find a good contractor. I'd research them. Like you said, do the research. I would go to their jobs. I would do whatever you have to do. So A is I would do that. B is I would make sure, even if it's the smallest project, like you're doing a bathroom, I would highly, highly recommend that you have drawings done that you could visually see it. You can see exactly what you're doing, where you're putting, and so on and so forth. Whenever you don't have a plan, and that's what I'm talking about with the design part of it, from A to Z, you're going to inevitably have problems. You're going to put electrical in areas that you shouldn't put electrical. You're going to have plumbing in areas that you probably shouldn't have done it. Like, you're like, hey, this is the faucet that we wanted to put in. Well, we didn't have that back when we were, so knowing exactly what we're going to do from A to Z, drawing wise, as well as purchasing all the materials and stuff, I think it would be number 2. And then number 3, I would say, it's not easy to do contracting, right? From the contractor's point of view, and then also from yours. It's an invasion on your house, right? So they're going to come in, they're going to live with you for X amount of time. Get along. Like don't fight, don't get into, because it's not going to lead you anywhere good. You're going to wind up going to court or suing this person. All of that's just going to cost a lot of money. So have patience.
It sounds like communication.
Communication, 100%. It's like that it's the number one thing in a relationship too, just in general, in my opinion.
Well, it's kind of interesting because one of the episodes I'm going to be filming next is all about communication. So,
nice.
So watch this episode and then watch the next episode, because we're going to talk about communication and ways to be effective in communication. But Kirin, thank you so much.
Sure.
You've been a great friend for a very long time.
Likewise.
I appreciate it, and some great information. And I hope this helps to demystify this process a little bit for people. And of course, please share this podcast and, like all of our episodes and tell your friends about it. And if you have any subjects or anything that you are interested in or you want more information about, put it in the comments and we will do our best to address it. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.